Hey everyone, welcome to today's webinar. We're excited to have everyone. We're going to give everyone just a few more minutes to start joining. It looks like we're having quite a few people log in right now. We're really excited about today's topic and our guest speaker today. Before we get too far into everything, I do want to make sure I cover a couple of quick housekeeping notes. Number one is after the presentation, we will be sending out a recording. So if you want to share anything with your staff or friends or colleagues, know that you will get a copy of the recording afterwards. Also, we definitely will be saving some room at the end of the webinar to answer any questions you guys have. So if you look over at your GoToWebinar control panel, you will find an area for questions throughout the webinar. Feel free just to ask questions there, and I'll be compiling those throughout the webinar, so at the end we can get as many questions answered as possible. So again, we're super excited about today's topic, how to drive social media engagement with your nonprofit stories, and we're really excited to have Julia Campbell with us today. Just a little bit more information about Julia. She has run her digital marketing consulting business for over a decade now, and she focuses exclusively on mission-driven organizations. She also is the author of the book, Storytelling in the Digital Age, a Guide for Nonprofits. So we're really excited to have her covering this topic with us today. So Julia, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited. I'm excited to get started.
Yeah, so one thing we like to do, Julia, is we like to start off asking everyone a quick poll question, just to kind of see where everyone is with their social media strategy. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this poll. Guys, what you should see pop up on your screen is a question that is, how confident are you in your organization's social media strategy? And so you can start answering that. We've got number one, I'm 100% confident, I'm a social ninja. We have some strategy in place. We do very little with social media, or I'm not confident at all what social media. So jump in if you don't mind, answer those questions. It looks like almost 75% of people have answered so far. We'll give this another few seconds here, and then we'll close the poll and show the results.
Awesome.
So another couple seconds here. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and close it. Get those last minute answers in. Okay, and now I'm gonna share the results. You should see them pop up on your screen. So Julia, I'd love to see what you have seen here. Is this what you typically see?
Yeah, I'm glad. Okay, so we have some strategy in place. That looks like the clear winner. That's definitely, I would have thought that would be a little bit less a lot of times on this webinar. But I do like to see confidence levels high and still willing to learn and still keeping an open mind and wanting to learn new things and new tips and tricks. So I think that's pretty great. And nobody said, at least I can't see, not confident, or
I
very
think
few people said that. So
maybe
that's good.
one person. So
So that's
that's
good. And that's fine. And there is something for everybody in this webinar.
great. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and hide these results, and then Julia, we'll let you take it from here.
Okay, great. So we went over a little bit about me. So we're not going to dwell on me a whole lot, but I wanted to tell you a couple things about me that are important to know. I am a mom of 2 kids. I'm a returned Peace Corps volunteer. A lot of times when I talk to nonprofits, I find other RPCVs, and if you are one, that's awesome. And we're the coolest people out there. I have been a former development and marketing director. So I've been a development director, I've been a marketing director, and then I've been a one-woman development and marketing director. So I'm sure that sounds familiar to a lot of you out there, and I wanted to let you know you're in the right place, and I've been in your shoes, and I completely understand what you are going through. Also, I wrote a book about storytelling and social media, so I like to think I know what I'm talking about. I am a passionate digital storytelling evangelist. Any challenge you have, throw at me in the questions, and I'm sure that I've dealt with it. If you want to tweet along, I'm at Julia C Social. Tweet at Kindful App at the bottom of your screen. I'd love to see what nuggets of wisdom you pick out. and what you get from this webinar. So we're going to cover several things today. We have a lot to cover, and I want to make sure we have time for questions, so we're going to go fast, and you're definitely going to get the recording and the slides. Don't worry about that. So I'm going to go through some specific storytelling strategies. I'm going to show you, as I always do in every webinar, real world examples from nonprofits that are doing it right, and share with you some free and low cost tools that I've used that are battle tested to really amplify and amp up your digital storytelling. So why do we talk about driving social media engagement with stories? So we are all storytellers. We know this. This is how we connect, right? So when you connect with a friend that you haven't seen in a long time, the first thing you're going to share with each other is some kind of personal story. That's just the way that human beings have connected since the dawn of time. I really like this quote from Seth Godin. If you don't know who Seth Godin is, Google him afterwards, read everything that he's ever read, and listen to his podcast. He's an incredibly insightful thought leader in the world of marketing. And his whole philosophy is that you want to create this tribe of people that say, people like us do things like this. This is what we're about. So your storytelling and your social media efforts really need to be conveying that people like us do things like this. Don't worry about people not like us, people that don't care about this cause, that aren't passionate about what we're passionate about. We don't really worry about them. We're going to worry about the people that we want to get on board. Another reason we talk about stories is, of course, donors and supporters have said again and again and again, this is what they want. So here you go. This is your content strategy right here, content strategy in a box. 60% stories, only 8%, like if you're running a campaign, your progress, some events, some news. Okay, I would even do probably 80% stories, but this is a study that was done by Blackbaud, and I think it's pretty accurate. Supporters want impact and success stories, and we know this. This is a Venn diagram that I believe every development director and marketing director needs printed out and put in their office, because what happens, and this is where nonprofits get stuck on social media especially, but in a lot of marketing and fundraising efforts, they get stuck on the blue side, right? Things that we want to tell. We have so many great things going on. We have 55 programs and we won this award and we have this new board member. This is what we want to tell you. But the purple side, that's really what your supporters and your audience and your tribe wants to hear from you. So we need to shift a little bit more to the purple, maybe into the middle, but this is an important diagram for you. I encourage you to print it out and put it on your wall. So I want to touch on some changes, recent changes that I've noticed in social media behavior. Of course, we know that we are using social media less, and Pew Internet came out yesterday with a study. So if you don't know Pew Internet, go to Pew, P-E-W, internet.org, or it's called Pew Research. They came out with a study yesterday that said over a quarter of Americans have actually deleted the Facebook app in the past year. That doesn't mean they haven't reinstalled it, but they have deleted it at one point. So Facebook has reported a 5% decline. Of course, they have 2 billion people spending hours on the site a day. Doesn't really take a big chunk out of their business. But we also know that we're sharing fewer personal updates. But we're increasing our use of messaging apps. So we still want that connection. We still want that personal touch with people, but we might be less inclined to broadcast everything that we're saying in such a public format. So I get this question all the time. As you can imagine, this is probably the number one question that I receive, and I'm sure some of you are going to ask me this question later. What the heck is going on with Facebook? Are people deleting it? Are nonprofits leaving it? It has almost 2 billion active users, okay? It's 2 billion users, but 1.7 billion active users every month. And then at last count, 450 million users connected to nonprofit pages. Of course, it just came out with that announcement that $300 million have been raised by birthday fundraisers in the past year. It's not going anywhere, and neither is Instagram, which is of course owned by Facebook. In fact, Instagram is just increasing in market share. So social media is not going anywhere. So we can love it or hate it. It is a complete revolution in the way that humans communicate, the way that we research and consume and look for and share information. It's a revolution. It's not a trend. So, okay, how do you really use it? How do you cut through the clutter and make a name for yourself and get more visibility? So what you really need to do first, this is what you need to do first. You need to ask yourself, what do your supporters value? Go back to that Venn diagram. This is not brainstorming what do we have on the docket for the last, for Q4 2018. What do we want to promote? This is what do your supporters really value? What do they want to know more about? So what I find interesting about a lot of the content that nonprofits share on social media is that they don't share a lot about the cause. They share a lot about the organization. So your donors do not give to you, they give through you because they care about a cause and an issue, and you represent the front lines of that. You represent the solution to that problem or that issue. So they want to learn more about the cause. They want to learn more about the issue. So take some time rather than thinking about, oh, what do we have to promote this month? Thinking about what your supporters want to know. Of course, to succeed in social media in any way, you have to answer the WIIFM question, what's in it for me? Now, this doesn't mean it has to be something tangible like a coupon or a free trip somewhere, but what value do you provide to their busy day? What incentive do I have to follow you? So nonprofits tend to think that we're entitled to this attention and we're entitled to people giving us donations and to giving us clicks and likes and shares because we do such good work, but that's not the case. We are not entitled to attention. We have to earn it. So think about what value you can provide that they're not getting in other places. What kind of education or resources do they look to you to provide? Where are the knowledge gaps? So what does your target audience know about you? And then what misconceptions do you want to address? I think that social media storytelling, and I'm going to show you some examples, is hugely powerful in changing hearts and minds, addressing stereotypes, addressing myths and misconceptions. And we all deal with sensitive topics and sensitive populations. And I think no matter who we're talking to, they can all use probably a little more education, a little bit more compassion training. So, Zuckerberg himself, he did say that their focus is to make sure Facebook isn't just fun, but good for your well-being. And I'm sure you're all rolling your eyes and laughing. But he did say that. So I'm going to tell you some of the ways that Facebook is trying to do that. So at the Facebook F8 Developer Conference, which if you are a super nerd, you live streamed and watched every single second and live tweeted like me. So Facebook told us what it takes to succeed. And what I think is interesting is that this is your formula for all social media. This is what works on social media. They said these 4 types of content: trusted, informative, local, and inspiring conversation. So they told us what it takes to succeed. They didn't tell us it was going to be easy, but they told us what it takes. So content that builds trust. For nonprofits, that is storytelling, testimonials, impact stories, videos, photos, quotes, not talking about how great we are, but talking about how we are pushing the needle on a cause and an issue that is important to our supporters. So we need to showcase our impact through storytelling. This is an example. A lot of these are screenshots. You'll see I just take screenshots right from my phone. My entire phone is littered with screenshots of nonprofit social media posts. This is Rosie's Place, a small organization in Boston, one marketing person, one development person, and they share a lot of stories on Instagram. They share stories to talk about the work they're doing in the community, but they also share stories to dispel a lot of the myths and the misconceptions that surround the women that they work with. Best Buddies International, they do a lot of user-generated content, and what that means is they monitor social media and they look for their mentors, their mentees, their volunteers, their people in the field sharing these great stories and these great quotes, and they of course ask for permission, and then they share it far and wide. You are not going to get any better or more powerful testimonial than someone that is in your orbit, someone that has benefited from your services. And as you can see, Best Buddies, they're trying to show that not only do the mentees benefit, but the mentors benefit from this relationship as well. And it's just a simple quote. It's not any fancy photo. It's not a fancy video. It's not fancy copywriting. It is authentic and in the moment and real. And that's so important. The Greater Boston Food Bank, where I live, very, very small, they did an entire storytelling campaign all around featuring people that are in the community. So Dan is a chef in Gloucester, and he's very well known. And Gloucester is right next door to where I live, and people know Dan and they know his restaurant. And the story was about finding out that you have this medical ailment, and then, of course, the medical bills are piling up. And this happens to so many people. It's something that I think all of us have either heard of or we can absolutely relate to. But this honest and raw and real and impactful storytelling. So check out those 3 examples when you get the slides. Check out their Facebook pages. They do a great job conveying their impact, conveying the impact that they have in society and in the community. Okay, so number 2 type of content that informs. So this means helpful resources that are targeted to your audience. What does that mean? California hospital volunteers, their audience are volunteers, people specifically that volunteer at hospitals. They share a lot of resources and a lot of information about how to time manage. They know that a lot of their volunteers are busy, or they share a lot of information about why volunteering is the best kept secret for mental health. Volunteering is tangible benefits. So they share stories about volunteers, but they combine it with this helpful information that their target audience wants and needs, and makes them feel good, about volunteering, makes them feel like they're doing something good. United Way of Massachusetts Bay, I love this one. 6 ways for you and your family to give back this Thanksgiving. I did download that because it was right around Thanksgiving. It's right around when people, you know, if you have kids like me, they're making Christmas lists. All they do is talking about their toys that they want and what they want for Christmas. And you want to kind of rein it in and bring it back. So they knew their target audience, and they're providing a value that is in alignment with their mission. Their mission is giving back, getting people engaged with philanthropy and giving back in their community. So the number 3rd type of content that's local. If you have a brick and mortar location, if you're a library or a museum or an arts center, a historic center, an animal shelter, anywhere that you invite people to actually come, you really want to encourage check-ins and location tagging on Facebook and Instagram, because Facebook and Instagram are pushing that content and showing it to more people locally. They really want us to be interacting in real life. So it used to be they just wanted us to be on our phones watching cat videos, but now they want us to be interacting in real life, which I think is great. And I think it's actually a benefit and a huge opportunity for small nonprofits especially. It also means you should be creating and promoting any event that you have on Facebook and tagging it with a location. If you don't have a brick and mortar, that's completely fine. If you don't have a location, that's fine. But I know you have events. I know every single one of you has events. So make sure you're creating and promoting local Facebook events, as local as you can. So I really hope that Facebook is true in what they were saying about promoting local events. As much as you can feature faces of the community, thanking people, showing people the benefits. This is for Volunteer Appreciation Week, you know, Serve Denver. The quote is so great. You know, I try to at least say hi, give a smile to everyone who comes through. You just feel warm and fuzzy and inspired by that. This is what I mean by Facebook events. This is a client of mine that went to a museum. They created portraits in silhouette, and then you can see, if you say interested, related events on the right-hand side. Facebook is showing you events that they think you might be interested in your area. So definitely take some time to create and promote local events if this is something that you do and that you have. Okay, the fourth bucket, content that inspires conversation. What does that mean? So of course we want good conversation to happen, but what they mean, I believe, is something that's kind of provocative, and this is very challenging for nonprofits. I don't mean provocative in provoking trolls and nastiness and haters. I mean provocative in getting someone to pay attention. Because at this point, We all have 50 different tabs open. I know you do. You probably have your phone open. How are you going to grab people's attention and keep their attention? You have to do something unexpected and you have to do something a little provocative. So take a look, if you're on Instagram, at the Be Real campaign. So they share, very professionally done photos and graphics, but then they also share stories from the community, all about the mission, all about promoting body image and body confidence. And it's really, really cool. And if you take a look at a lot of the photos, it's really brave. A lot of the people were sharing this publicly on the internet, but it's very provocative. It encourages conversation, inspires conversation. Asking questions, building community among your supporters. This is why Facebook groups work. So I'm not saying that Facebook groups are sort of the be all end all and a solution for everyone, but creating the sense of community with your content, not like an us against the world thing, but people like us do things like this. I'm not a caretaker. So I don't necessarily feel excluded by this. I don't feel offended by this question, but people that are caretakers are passionate about being caretakers and they want to share information about being caretakers. They want to connect with other caretakers. So creating a community on social media where you can connect people and drive them to resources that really help them. So Amira New England, another hugely influential and I think incredibly inspiring nonprofit that's on social media. They deal with and they address people that have just come out of human trafficking situations, like basic sex slavery. And this is in the United States. This is in New England. This does happen here. So they can't share identifying details of a lot of their clients, and they can't share their names and they can't share photos. So they do things like Milestone Monday. This encourages conversation. Please join us in congratulating her. Please join us in supporting her for the days ahead. Macmillan Cancer Support. If you're running a storytelling campaign, you have to do it first. You have to walk the walk first. So they did an entire storytelling campaign around That's My Dad, but they started with their volunteers and with their team members. What you don't want to do is post a piece of text like this and say, share a story about your dad. That's kind of intimidating. Nobody really knows where to start. Nobody wants to be the first person at the buffet, that kind of thing. So you need to be willing to get out of your comfort zone or to be sharing the stories of your staff, of your volunteers, of the people on your team. And then as you can see in the 35 comments, 100 shares, after that, they received a lot of engagement and a lot of support. So what stories are you going to collect and share on social media? And we touched on this a little bit, but the impact story is your best bet. This is what's going to connect you with supporters. This is what's going to deepen relationships with your donors. So that's, a life changed, a trajectory altered. It's not data driven. It can be data supported, but it's not data driven. It's emotionally driven. It focuses on the benefits of what you do and not the features. So I think a good example is when I spoke at the American Childhood Cancer Organization. I spoke to a room full of parents who had lost a child to cancer. It was by far the most difficult presentation I've ever made, as a mom. And also I have a really good friend of mine who lost a child to cancer. And these people were amazing and so brave. But what I found is they wanted to figure out how to share their stories in the most impactful way. And here I am, trying to get them to share these horrifying moments of their lives. They all talked about what happened, right? They talked about he was diagnosed and we went to the hospital and then we had treatments and then we did this and then we did that and then we did this. And I know that was a protection mechanism for them, but my job, I was hired to come in and encourage them to talk from a really personal, vulnerable place of how did that make you feel? How did that make your family feel? How did the siblings feel? And not to be exploitative. These families genuinely wanted to connect with other families and help them and provide resources to them. So it's not being exploitative at all in my mind and not in their mind either. But focus on how something made someone feel. What was the impact? Don't focus on the features, the nuts and bolts of what they actually did. not what they went through, but how they felt. And then you can also use impact stories, like we said before, to address knowledge gaps and stereotypes about the population. Best Buddies does a great job about that. They always share video. They write a lot of these posts like they are little mini newspaper articles, which I think is really cool. Then I wanted to show you, this is a story from WBUR, which is the NPR affiliate where I live. And whether you're a fan of NPR or not, they do fantastic storytelling. And as you can see, this article, you would never know it was about a nonprofit. A lot of these stories are about nonprofits, but I wanted to share this with you because I love the way it starts. It grabs you, it gets your attention, it gets an emotional reaction, and you want to read the rest of it. So take a moment to look at your local news outlets, look at national news outlets, and articles that are written about nonprofits, they're never written about the nonprofit. They're never written like in the form of a press release. They're written around a fantastic story, and the nonprofit happens to be kind of a side actor. So that's a little bit of PR thrown in, a little bit of PR tips thrown in. Did you know is perfect to share on social media. And then here's a story about someone. So did you know this? If you didn't, here's a great story showing you something that you might not have known. Insider stories. These are the volunteers. These are the people that work within your organization. Why do they do it? What have they learned? So what you don't want to do is you don't want to go to someone and say, tell me your story, because they'll never do that. It's very intimidating. What's been their best experience? What has been the hardest thing? What's been the easiest? What's been the best? What's been their favorite memory? Get that behind the scenes insight. People are craving that human connection on social media. They crave it. They love when we make mistakes. They love when we go live because they see these little glimpses that we are not perfect. We are not the logo. We are not the brand. We are actually humans behind it. You want to humanize your brand. Anyone can do this. National Volunteer Week. Print out a piece of paper. I volunteer because. There you go. Perfect Instagram post. You're jumping on a popular hashtag. You're telling a story. You're being authentic. You're also showcasing and acknowledging the hard work of someone that means a lot to you. And I think that's important as well. Highlighting interns anywhere you go. Telling their story works really, really well. But also, a story doesn't need to be the hero's journey. It doesn't need to be Luke Skywalker lost his parents and then he found Obi-Wan Kenobi and then he found a secret message from Leia and then, he set off on this adventure. It doesn't have to be that. It can be these little glimpses, inside glimpses behind the scenes. I love this. When you have a handful of wild and draw 4 cards in Uno, hashtag winning. I absolutely love it. This tells a story without telling a story, like without the traditional form of storytelling. Think about these mission moments that you can share that piece together the puzzle piece of your overall narrative of your organization. Donor stories. We don't tell donor stories enough. This is a hugely powerful form of social capital. Why do they give? Why do they continue to give? What does this mean to them? And you can have people that fundraise for you. You might not have people that are quite as amazing as Taylor who shave their head for you. That's pretty amazing. But I'm willing to bet that you have some incredible stories. So one of my favorite stories, it's not on social media, but it's a suicide prevention organization that I worked with. And a donor came in every week and gave the receptionist cash, $10 cash, every single Friday. So no one thought to ask him why he did that. So I said, okay, well, maybe we should ask him because that's kind of an interesting thing to do. He does it every single Friday after work, $10 cash. He did it for like 2 years. No one asked him why. Then when finally the receptionist said, thank you so much, like they'd send him thank you notes, but they never really asked him his story. He was more than willing to tell his story. He said, my son killed himself 2 years ago. And ever since then, I've been donating his allowance to this organization every Friday. Talk about it. I still get choked up telling that story. That is just, those are the kinds of stories that you want to tell. And I know you have those in your organization. You have that $10 donor. You have those powerful stories to share. I still get choked up. I'm not even kidding you. I've told that story hundreds of times. I still think about that man. I actually don't know if he's still donating. That was years ago. I should call them and find out, and we should really do a feature on him because it's pretty incredible. What I love about this particular post is that rather than, my Bob's Furniture is a big company where I live in Boston and New England. Rather than just putting up their logo and saying, thanks, Bob's Furniture, they actually told the story of what happened with the furniture. So not only is that going to get more engagement for you on social media, because logos don't get any engagement. Logos are terrible and boring and horrible to post. This is going to get more engagement for them and more exposure for them, which is then, of course, going to create a feedback loop where hopefully they're compelled to donate again. Okay, community story. Who are your influential, well-respected community members? Maybe they're city councilors or mayors, maybe not, maybe they're local PTO, whatever it is. Who are your community partners that you work with every day? I know we all don't do our jobs alone. You all have community partners that you work with. Could be anybody. This is, you might have a fabulous speaker that's speaking. Tell their story. Take a video. Explain, why they decided to speak. And I love the Boys and Girls Club. What I wish they had done here, and I told them this to their face, I wish they had talked to the judges and asked the judges more about what was so important to them about the Boys and Girls Club. I wish they talked to the finalists more to get those stories, even just with your cell phone. Because clearly they have the permission to share their faces and names, so why not just get a video? It's a little bit more compelling than a plain shot. I told you before, it's often not productive to ask someone to share their story. So you want to ask some leading questions. Here are some leading questions here that you can ask to kind of pull out the best stories from people. Because if you just go to people, if you say, no one wants to share their story with me, well, maybe it's because of the way you're phrasing it. Okay, so what are some tools that you can use to help make your digital storytelling more visual, more eye-catching, more impactful? How are you going to grab attention? First of all, you can use your smartphone, of course. Native videos on social media, also called on-demand videos. That just means a video that you take and you upload it directly into the platform. So I would, as much as you want to probably do this, I would refrain from sharing YouTube links on Facebook and on Twitter because they don't automatically play. And of course, none of these companies play nicely with each other. Facebook and Google are both competing to take over the world at this point. So Facebook is not going to make it look nice and it's not going to give it as much reach. So upload your videos as much as you can natively into the platform. Live streaming videos. The most engaging form of content. Instagram Live, Periscope on Twitter, Facebook Live. If you want more engagement and more reach, especially on Facebook, you need a plan to do some live streaming. And of course, I could do an entire 3-hour webinar on live streaming, but you do need a plan and you need to prepare and you need to put it in your content strategy, put it in your toolbox. I think videos, now people really like amateur videos much more than polished videos. I don't know if any of you follow Celeste Barber on Instagram, and if you don't, she's amazing, Celeste Barber. She makes fun of these polished, like filtered, impossible videos and photos that models take and all these airbrushed videos. People love her. She's a huge following. The more you can be authentic, the more you can be raw, the more you can be in the moment. Even on your phone. If you get a $100 donation and that made your day on Friday, pull out your phone and say, we just got a $100 donation. Thank you so much. And if the donor agrees to be thanked, thank them by name. In the moment. This is what social media is supposed to be for. Thanking supporters in the moment. Canva. So Canva for nonprofits, you actually could just go to canva.com/nonprofits. I want to show you. This is what Canva looks like. If you are using Canva, you're jumping up and down right now saying, oh my gosh, Canva is the best thing in the world, and it really is. It's completely free. For nonprofits, you can get a premium account, and you can create pretty much any kind of design that you want. Infographics, blog graphics, Instagram posts, anything that you want. There's no excuse to not be using visuals. Absolutely no excuse to not have a visual with every post now that Canva's come along. Animoto is for video. It's one of my favorites. Usually I like to throw hundreds of tools at you, but today I thought I would distill it into my absolute favorite must-haves. Animoto, you can edit video, you can actually string together some photos and make a photo collage with music and text overlay. WordSwag mobile app I use all the time. I just used it today. I went to a conference this morning. Shonda Rhimes spoke. There was a great quote. I used WordSwag to just make her quote into a graphic, shared it on Instagram. It took about 30 seconds. So there are these free and low-cost tools out there. Also, Hootsuite. So there's a lot of debate over automation in social media, and I'm not going to dwell too much on it. I use Hootsuite and Buffer predominantly for Twitter, but I also use it if I know I'm going to need to schedule out a post. So if I know I'm going to be at a conference and I might be on the road, I will schedule something that morning to say, hey, I'm speaking in room 209 at 11 a.m. Please join me, because when I'm in the throes of the conference, I know I might not remember. I also use it so I'm not tweeting 27 articles that I found at once. You can kind of buffer them and schedule them throughout the day. So those are tools I would use them sparingly. BuzzSumo is a fantastic tool to use to find content around keywords and around topics. So just to wrap up, your 3 keys to social media success: consistency. You have to show up. You cannot just spray and pray. You cannot automate everything. Less is always, always more. This is why I say focus on 1 or 2 channels and do them well. Content that people actually like to watch, read, share, and comment on. That is absolutely vital. And if you don't know what they like, then take a look at your accounts. See what the most engaged posts are, see what's shared the most, see what's liked the most. Ask people. Just, you gotta do some research. It's not easy, but it's really important. And then confidence. You have to have confidence in your mission. I should add, in your mission, in your voice, in taking risks, and in just, in being yourself. That's really what it takes. In terms of storytelling, people are going to forget what you said. They'll forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. I love this quote. So important for us in the social sector. So important for us as we convey really what we're all about and how we are building our movement. So that's all I have for slides. I am so excited that I could be here today. Make sure that you connect with me on Twitter, on my blog, in my Facebook group. There's 10 million ways to get in touch with me. But I would love to take some specific questions.
Yeah, so we're gonna put some questions together for you, Julia. Thank you so much. This was really helpful. I know
Sure.
Madeline and I we do our marketing here at Kindful, and we're watching and feverishly taking notes as well, because we learned a lot, I think, ourselves as even a for-profit company that serves nonprofits, about some things we can do better. So thank you so much.
Great.
So if you do have a question for Julia, go ahead and go over to the GoToWebinar control panel and start submitting those questions there right under the question section, and we'll answer as many as we can. We've had a couple come in, so you mind if we just kind of do a rapid fire
Sure.
here?
Let's just do it.
So first off, this one's a little long, but I thought it was actually a pretty good question. It was Jordan asked, my agency has both a transitional residential program for clients and a social enterprise used to employ clients both during and after the program. There's been a lot of back and forth as of late about whether we should be pushing the products we make to the forefront, or if our primary content should be more about the individual stories because the leadership is feeling pressure to make the social enterprise self-sustaining. He goes on a little bit further, but I think he's really getting to is, they're making some products as part of their organization, but then there's the stories. Like, how should they strike a balance there?
Well, I think that you really have to go back to the old 80-20 rule. So I know I shared that slide before that said 60% should be stories, whatever. But the old rule is the rule of 80-20. And I think this is still relevant today. So 80% of your content needs to be that trusted, informative, local, inspiring conversation, entertaining. It needs to be stories. It needs to be helpful and valuable. And then 20% of your content can be promotional. I really even think today it should maybe even be 90 to 10. Like, I think it should be even less than that. Sorry, my phone is ringing. I think it should be much more conversational, much more about your results, because we're constantly trying to have to grab attention and keep attention. And I mean, promotion on social media doesn't work the way it used to. I think you'll see a lot of seasoned marketers doing almost 100% value add in their content and then purchasing ads when they go and they promote something for sale. So to me, it's all about your audience, and it's all about what your audience wants to get from you. So I understand the pressure to sell things, but if it's not working and it's turning off your audience, then I would decrease it. But I would definitely have a strategy for sharing information that's valuable to your audience first and sharing a lot of it, and then having that, promotional ask, maybe it'd be like 10% of the content that you're sharing.
Great. No, it's really helpful. So we've got a couple more coming in here. So one that I'm really interested to hear what your thoughts are on this. How do you handle negative/rude comments on your social posts? Do you remove them, ignore them, respond to them? What's your thoughts there?
This is a question I get all the time, and I feel like I need to write a blog post about this. I get this question every single webinar, and I think you'll see that this happens less than you might think. But if this is happening to you, I always recommend not deleting it unless it violates your social media policy. So first of all, you have to create your social media policy. What is accepted on your sites and what is not? So clearly you can say we do not accept any form of obscenity, any kind of hate speech, any kind of bullying, any kind of spam, any kind of promotion. There's millions of examples out there, and I'm happy to share some if you email me, of social media policies. Create a social media policy and then stick to it. So if the person is being obscene or violating your policy, then you can delete and block them. If they're only saying something that makes you a little bit uncomfortable or it's negative, you don't want to delete it because the rest of the community will see that and they might think you're hiding something and they might get a bad taste in their mouth. Address it head on, write in the comment or the tweet, say, I am very sorry that this happened to you. Please email me or please call me. Just take it offline immediately. And what I see in 99% of the cases is that people just want to be heard. They're lonely, they have a bone to pick, who knows, they have a chip on their shoulder, they just want to be heard. And then once you address it online, they'll come back usually and delete their comment, or they will say, wow, I was so wrong, or I misunderstood, or thank you so much, everyone was so helpful. So the worst thing you can do is completely ignore it. And the second worst thing you can do is delete it and pretend it never happened. So I'd say address it head on and just be completely honest and as honest and transparent as you can be. And but if things are violating your social media policy, then feel free to delete and block.
So we're getting a lot of questions about frequency of posts. I even saw one that mentioned, that they have leadership who is looking for like a quota. You need to do this many versus thinking about value or the how good the content is. That they just need to do this many per day on this platform, this many per day on that platform, and then some other folks are just asking, how. Is there any sort of thoughts you have around what frequency works best, or is it more focused on the type of content you're promoting?
Well, it's completely dependent on your audience and what they want to hear from you. So I think an example would be if you are a political advocacy organization or you're doing anything about political advocacy, you might be posting multiple times a day if a bill is going to be passed or if something's coming up for a vote or if there's funding being slashed for something. If you are a local food bank, you might only be posting on Facebook 3 or 4 times a week, maybe 3 or 4 times a week on Instagram. But the key is your audience and providing value to them in every post. So I found that, okay, so I was posting on Instagram and I was posting on Facebook like 3 times a day because I thought that's what you were supposed to be doing. Then I discovered, you know what? I should just be carefully crafting 1 post a day, or maybe 1 post every other day. But if it's carefully crafted and if it looks great and if it's got a great visual, people are going to respond to it. So what you don't want to do is just be throwing things up there because you have to meet a quota. I would say that's probably the worst thing that you can do. Quality over quantity every single day of the week. So an example that I would give you is the St. Baldrick's Foundation. They were posting via a quota. They said, okay, we have to post twice a day on Facebook. They have to post once a day on Instagram and 6 times a day on Twitter, whatever they were on. And then all of a sudden they got a new social media manager and she said, hey, the reach is so low on all of these posts. Why don't we just try upping the quality, decreasing the quantity? And that has just exploded their reach and their engagement. So it completely depends on your audience. It depends on the platform. It depends on your mission, your goals, what you're trying to do. But I always think quality over quantity. And I've actually seen on Facebook, just posting once a day tends to work best. People are spending less and less time on Facebook. And what you don't want is you don't want to have, you don't want to water down the quality of your content. But you have to look at your analytics, you have to look at your insights, you have to see what's working for you. But the quotas thing, you know what, I would have your boss give me a call and I'll talk to her about that. I'll say, hey, quotas does not work. And then you know what, then you're just spinning your wheels and you're not really getting any results. So quality over quantity, that's my mantra.
So we had another one that I thought I again would be interested to get your take on. Do you see value in boosting posts or paid campaigns?
Absolutely. So boosting posts, first of all, if you want to boost a post, only boost something that's good. So don't boost something that your audience has told you they're not interested in because there's no comments, there's no shares, there's no likes. You want to boost something that's getting a lot of traction, but you feel if you add like $5, $10 to it, it could even be seen by more people. I would use boosted posts sparingly. If you're really trying to promote maybe your fundraising campaign at the end of the year, maybe you're doing a thank you campaign, maybe you have a video that you want everyone to see, maybe you have a blog post you want people to read, create a standalone Facebook ad in Ads Manager to drive people to get that action that you want. I absolutely see value in it, but it needs to be done very strategically and thoughtfully. What I don't like to see is nonprofits just willy-nilly boosting $5 here, $10 there, and then not really examining what happens after. So you need to be continually evaluating your results, measuring your impact, seeing if you're getting the kind of results that you want, seeing if that boosted post is actually getting you more Facebook fans or video views or whatever it is that you want. But I completely see the value in paying for social media ads, but it has to be done. It just has to be done very well and very thoughtfully.
Okay, so this is going down a little bit of a different path, but so our nonprofit is very small and just getting started. We don't have a ton of success stories to post yet. What content is most important at those early stages?
Well, actually, I like the stories of just getting up on your feet. Like, what are you doing every day? So you just started. What are you struggling with? What are the challenges? How are you navigating the world of being a startup? What is your origin story? What was the problem, the gap that you saw in the community that you needed to fill? You're going to have to do a lot of origin story in the beginning, a lot about why you were founded, who you were founded by, what happened, what were the circumstances, and then you can share a lot about the process of getting started, like recruiting board members, recruiting volunteers. Maybe you're trying to open up an office in a local church. What does that look like? Maybe you're trying to partner with people. What does that look like? But get those stories along the way. Make sure that you have that storytelling mentality. So you're thinking like a journalist, you're thinking like a detective every single step of the way. So you're like, oh, this would be a great story. This, let's collect it. You know, let's get a photo, let's get a short video, or oh, this person would be great to give a testimonial to. So you've got to be collecting those things along the way. But I really like the idea of you're brand new, which first of all gives you an advantage because everyone loves shiny and new. Everyone loves things when they're new and when they first start. And then you have the advantage of probably a really great origin story. You know, why did you start? Like the story of Moms Demand Action. Like a mom just saw a need in her community and started this, and now it's this national organization. So how did you begin? What are your roots? And what are your vision? Tell stories about how you want to change society, how you see the community and the town or the region or the state being different in 2 or 3 years from now. Tell stories about where you want to go, who you want to help. Tell stories from your own experience, like what has impacted you, why did you begin this organization? So I think there's a wealth of information that you can pull from as you start collecting those traditional testimonial success stories.
So we'll hit maybe just one or two more here.
Okay.
So let's see. There was how do you find out who your audience is on social media? I know you mentioned just a little bit ago insights and analytics, but what thoughts do you have there?
This is tricky. So I believe that every single platform is different, and you might have different audiences on all different platforms. So you have to go into your insights and really look at your demographics and look at who is there. So an example that I use is a client of mine, Road Scholar. They're formerly Elder Hostel, and they provide educational trips and resources to seniors. And they found that they were posting on all of these different channels, kind of like spraying and praying. They didn't really have a strategy. They didn't know who they were talking to. They kind of knew maybe like older people, but we don't really know. Then we did a lot of research. We looked at the analytics, we looked at the demographics, we looked at Google Analytics for their website, who was reading their blog, who was subscribing to their newsletter. I mean, we did some research, and then we figured out this persona of this person that kind of encompassed a little bit of every audience, but really was the target person that we were trying to reach. And we called her the funky grandma. So she is over 65, probably living alone. She's going to climb Mount Everest. No one's going to tell her that she can't. She's going to start an Instagram account just because she can. She's very into like female empowerment and, senior citizen empowerment. So once you have that avatar in mind, and you are going to have to do some research on that. You're going to have to look at your audience. Maybe you send out a survey, maybe you do focus groups, maybe you talk to all your different departments. Who really is that person that's paying attention to you online? Who is like your bread and butter person? And then all they do is create content for her. So what that means is anytime they want to post something on Facebook, the social media person says, would the funky grandma like this? And if the answer is no, they don't post it. If the answer is yes, they do. That doesn't exclude everybody else because there's a lot of overlap in that kind of content. But they have this one person in mind, and since they've started focusing their efforts, honestly, their Facebook engagement has just exploded like 500%. So as focused and targeted as you can be on each platform, the better. But I would really just take a really good look at your insights and your Google Analytics or your website analytics, look at the demographics, look at what kind of content is resonating if you've been posting for a while. And then also you can maybe do surveys, you can talk to people, but it's just like a traditional market research to try to figure out who that persona is. But it is so worth it when you actually hit the nail on the head.
So one last question, and I'm going to be a little selfish here, and I'm going to ask one that I find really interesting, and that is, getting people to consume your content is great, right? I think, but getting people to share your content, right, is better, right? Like, and so because it just can drastically and exponentially expand your reach. What tips and suggestions do you have for organizations to get people to go out and share your stories, your content, and really just to be a microphone or a advocate for your organization?
Well, you have to understand why people share. So why people share, they share for inherently narcissistic reasons. So we share to make ourselves look good to other people, and we share to express things about ourselves. That's really why we share. We don't necessarily share because somebody asked us to, right? We share because it reflects on us and it gives us better status and it just reflects on us in a good way. So you have to understand your particular audience and what would make them feel that way, but also you really have to get provocative and emotional. I'm not going to share something that didn't either make me angry or make me sad or make me feel very inspired. There's no way. So because think about the number of pieces of information that you consume every single day. Just think about all of the notifications, everything coming at you every single day. It's those pieces of content that elicit that emotional response. So maybe they surprise you. Maybe they really inspire you. Maybe it's something that's super, super helpful and you say, oh my gosh, I just really want to pass this on because this is so helpful. I didn't know this. But it has to have that element. And that is very, very challenging. But I do think if you know who your audience is and you know the kinds of things that, if you know the kinds of things that really elicit an emotion from them or really get them excited and passionate, it's a lot easier. So do a lot of work on your target audience, but then we all have to do some work around creating content that is shareable. It's very, very difficult. It has to be different and it has to be compelling.
I think that's great. Well, Julia, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you.
One last time, do you want to just, I know we've got the screen up here, but share how everybody can get in touch with you? And then, again, thank you for just taking the time today. It was so, so helpful and informative.
Oh, thanks. Well, I started this Facebook group. I manage it with my friend Josh, who's the director of mission and communication at Susan G. Komen, South Florida. And it's about 3,000 nonprofit marketers, fundraisers, just like all of you. It's taken off, sharing resources and advice. And then, of course, email me, might take a little bit longer, Twitter, and my blog, where I share a lot more specific tactics around each platform. So
Great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for everyone who attended today. We really, really appreciate you taking your time. We understand that you're very busy and, just hope that you have a good rest of the week and happy fundraising.